The quality of customer service that you can expect from a UK business, and I use UK business loosely here, and I'll explain why in a second, but the quality of its customer interactions could not be lower. Last year in May, my dad passed away. I took ownership of managing all of his estate between me, my brother and sister. We were the executors. And this year, over a year later, we sold his property. Now, when he passed away, I contacted all of the billing companies, his council tax, his gas, his electricity, all of those various companies, and I notified them as to what had happened. And then all of the bills were redirected to me. So I've been receiving them since as the executor. And in September of this year, so over a year later, his house, the only thing he really had at that point, was sold and handed over to a new owner. And on that very day, I contacted his gas and electricity companies. Now I'm going to talk about one of them specifically in this video, and that was for his electricity supply. My dad was old school. You couldn't talk to him about dual fuel. No, son, I get my gas for British Gas and I get my electricity for Scottish Power. There was no talking to him about the fact that they were kind of the one and same in terms of supplying you gas and electricity. It didn't matter. So that was one of those debates, discussions that just wasn't worth having, right? Just leave them to it. But Scottish Power, let's talk about Scottish Power. I worked at Scottish Power for almost 2 decades. So I know what the business is like. And I said at the beginning of this, British businesses, and I'm using that loosely because they're ultimately now Spanish owned by Iberdrola. Iberdrola took over when I was still there, and that was enough for me to kind of head out the door. I could see the writing on the wall when they started introducing things like you had to scan your name badge in order to print documents out in the office. You were only allowed to use black and white. The coffee machine went from free to suddenly 20 pence, 50 pence, and then it was £1. And it was like, yeah, here we go. It's that point when they just start bleeding every single little thing out of your work's existence. Well, let's get back to the point. My dad's house sold on the 17th of September. On that very day, I picked up the phone and I called Scottish Power when I was actually in Scotland staying at Pal's house. I called them up and I gave them the final meter readings. Now, since when he passed until the 17th of September, I'd been to the house a number of times. There was nothing in it. It was completely empty. And so I had paid the bill the minute he had passed away, cleared any potential debt that was there for the property, cleared them up to speed. And then from there, they started sending me relentless bills, estimations for all sorts of wild values, £100 here, £200 there. And I just kept stalling on that until the 17th of September. And I had a final bill for a couple of £100, and I called them up and I gave them the handover meter readings. And in reality, the final bill was just under £20. I paid the £20 and I thought, that's it, that's the account closed. And now I fast forward to now. Today is the 21st of November, but let me rewind just very slightly. On the 13th of November, Yvonne's mum contacts us to tell us that we've got a demand letter from Scottish Power for electricity. The bill was for £231.34. So I'm here in Kuala Lumpur, I'm not in the UK, time difference of plus 8 hours, and also the cost to call Scottish Power would be astronomical. So I go into their chatbot. Their chatbot is just automated. It's bouncing me around and bouncing me around and bouncing me around. To finish up, I'm typing in, an agent, send me to an agent. And I finally get on with an agent. It takes 40 minutes to raise a formal complaint about the handling of all of this. The fact that the property was handed over, the fact that I gave the meter readings, the fact that I'm now getting these demand letters. The agent takes note of it all, and the 14th of November, I receive an apology email less than 24 hours later to say, we're so sorry about this, we fixed it all, you won't receive any further comms from us. There's no debt to be paid, you paid that on the 17th of September. On the 15th of November, one day later, I receive another bill for £231, sent this time again to my wife's address. On the 18th of November, my wife's address receives another bill for £231.34. The same bill printed multiple times. So at that point, I go back to the email, I reopen the complaint, I respond back to the agent saying, look, you've sent me another 2 bills since then, and I don't hear any response from them, even though this was the official path to reopen this complaint. And yesterday, the 20th of November, another bill was received from Scottish Power, all demanding £231.34. Now I know what you're thinking, these are just reprints, right? Of course they are, but how much is this costing? These are all being sent to Yvonne's parents' home, chasing a debt that doesn't exist for a property that lay empty for over a year, a bill that I've already settled back in September, and yet here we are still debating it after I've raised a formal complaint, had an apology, and then also had it written that they would not contact me anymore. And so yesterday, 20th of November, new bill comes in, same again, and this time I have to log on to the chat window and reopen the complaint. And when I talk to the agent, he tells me, yeah, your complaint's officially closed. And I said, well, I emailed back to reopen it. Yeah, that didn't happen. It's just like failure, 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 failure. And so yesterday he's then said, well, how would you like to resolve this? And honestly, I've said compensation for my time. 40 minutes here, half an hour there, paying the bill here. Like, it's all time out of your lives that you have to go and correct their mistakes. I'm so glad I'm out of Scottish Power. The £231 bill doesn't exist, except they keep sending me letters. So that's 4 now to demand this payment, when the real bill's just under 20 quid. This is all the stuff you try and think you've left behind, right? This is all the stuff that you move out the country and you're like, right, I've got everything up to date, I've paid everything, I'm on the right side, I'm telling HMRC, I've paid all my bills, I've cleared my council tax, I've changed my driving licence address, I've done everything that's possibly needed to be out this country as cleanly as possible, and yet it just keeps coming for you a little bit more and a little bit more. So, Scottish Power, sort your shit out. You're sending me 4 letters to tell me about a bill that doesn't exist, and then I've got to spend 40 minutes talking to an agent, then you've got to send me an apology, then I've got to spend another 20 odd minutes talking to another agent about the same complaint, only for another complaint handler to handle it today. How much money are you wasting with just this piss poor service? I'll tell you what, my dad would be having a chuckle at all of this. He'd be like, there you go, son, you're having to manage all of this on my behalf. That would be give him a little smile, just because I know that he was getting bombarded left, right and centre by both British Gas and Scottish Power. Oh, do you want to take out dual fuel? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And he never, ever broke ranks on it. No. Gas for British Gas, electricity for Scottish Power, and I'm sticking to that. And look where we are now. Can't even get the account closed.